It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is the Friday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Joe DiBiase from Locked On Sabres, joined by Rachel Donner from Locked On Flyers, who I also cannot believe I just found out is a Bills fan. Also just realized that she named her car back in the day.
I did. I named it Jim after Jim Kelly because I'm that girl.
Do you still name your car?
Sort of. I have like a blue Subaru now. I like blue cars. I don't know. So I kind of call it my TARDIS because I can fit a lot more in it than you would think.
Also a Subaru driver. I'm still... The next car, hopefully, is that WRX for me. That's like my...
Nice.
I feel like my dream car should be something above that. But I don't know. I've always wanted one. So I hesitate to call it my dream car because dream car should be like, what, Lamborghinis or something crazy like that. But I've always wanted that. Yeah, I named my first car Haley after Halley's Comet. I was a big astronomy guy in school. So yeah, naming cars. I don't do it anymore though, so I'm gonna need to. But also, Bills fan. We're gonna have to talk about them a little bit throughout the course of the season. If we get any dry spots on the podcast here.
Absolutely, I'm here for it.
All right, let's get to a lot of new stuff that we have on the podcast today. We're going to jump through a bunch of news items that really have gone on this week as teams are returning to training camp, and we've still got some people that are unsigned. The preseason I know the Sabres preseason is 5 days away. I'd imagine for most teams, it's less than a week until we're going to see these teams back on the ice, playing hockey games, and then it'll be pretty quick from there to the regular season. Before you know it, we're going to have real hockey to talk about. But, Rachel, like a lot of big-name players are going to maybe miss the start of the season. So let's go through that list a little bit here. We'll start with your Flyers. Kevin Hayes out 6 to 8 weeks. This is a big loss for the Flyers.
It really is. You know, given all the changes that have happened with the team this offseason, Kevin Hayes was kind of a lock at that 2C like he's been in the past. And looks like he's going to miss about 10 games. He had a second abdominal surgery a couple of days ago, and it'll take him a little time to recover. But the good news is that he is hanging out with the team and getting to know everybody, so that at least personality wise he won't be coming into an awkward situation when he does get back on the ice.
Their division rival, the Pittsburgh Penguins, have another injury that's going to threaten Evgeny Malkin at the start of the season. Sidney Crosby already going to miss a few games. Probably not a lot at the start of the year, but I think the projection on him was like 5 to 10 games that he would miss after having surgery a couple weeks ago. Now we find out today, or yesterday on Thursday, that Evgeny Malkin could miss up to 2 months after having a knee procedure. And that means they're going to be without their top two centers for the start of the year, and they're going to be without Malkin for thereafter. And they got to make a decision on him at some point because he is up there in age. He's 35 years old. He is in the final year of his contract, and this is a few years in a row now where there's always something injury-wise that is popping up with Malkin. So I don't know, what's more interesting for you on this, Malkin's future or the impact it'll make on the Penguins early in the year?
I've been sort of thinking about Malkin in general before this news and how long the Crosby-Malkin duo would even be together, given that Malkin was finishing up his contract and his age, like you just said. And so having this happen, I think also given that Ron Hextall is around, I just see him more looking toward the future and at least taking this time to figure out what the future of the Penguins look like. And, I hate it that it's for injury reasons, of course, but it's a good thing for the other teams in the division, I would say.
Definitely. And sticking in that division once again with the Washington Capitals, Nicholas Backstrom is now week to week. He has got, due to ongoing rehabilitation on his hip, is what the team said. So he'll be unavailable at the start of training camp, and we'll see if he's ready for the start of the year. But again, this is three top 6 centermen all in that division that are going to potentially miss the start of the year. The Capitals, in comparison to the other teams, I mean, they've got Kuznetsov behind Backstrom, but Kuznetsov had a down year last year. Backstrom was near a point-a-game player, even though he's, again, a little bit older as well in his 30s. Like, they still rely on him a lot. So I don't know. Who's going to miss their guy the most? Washington, Pittsburgh, or Philadelphia for you, even though maybe it's not that long for Backstrom?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased here, I guess, but I'm going to say Kevin Hayes just because I think, while the Flyers have the depth in numbers to fill that center role, is there somebody as high quality or even close to high quality to fill that spot? No. Mm-hmm. And I think that the Penguins are so used to adjusting around Malkin that they'll figure it out somehow.
Right.
And like you said, Backstrom is a shorter time.
Right. And they at least do have Kuznetsov. They can step up for a little bit.
No, only Kuznetsov.
And right. We're going to get, by the way, to Jack Eichel in our next segment here. He was stripped of his captaincy today. That's really been the big news on Thursday. But before we do that, a couple other news items to get to, starting with restricted free agents that are still unsigned as training camps are beginning. We've got in Vancouver, Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes. And then in Ottawa, we have Brady Tkachuk. And from what I've read on all of these situations, I think Ottawa maybe is the more head-scratching of the two teams. They're not paying anybody. In fact, they are currently below the cap floor. So, like, everyone knows they have to pay Tkachuk. Like, they can't go into the season. Whereas Vancouver, I mean, I guess, of course, they would not want to go into the year without Hughes or Pettersson. But if they really wanted to play hardball, they can start the year without them under contract. Ottawa can't even do that. Like, Kachuk's got to be looking at them and knowing, like, you've got to make a decision in the next 4 weeks. So I'm just going to sit here and not really negotiate. You know what I want, and let me know when you want to sign the contract. Like, to me, Ottawa is the one where I think they're going to sign Tkachuk first because they have to. And again, they're not paying anybody. They've only got a couple of real star-level players in their organization, and I think he's one of them. So it's kind of a bad look. They haven't even done it yet, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, he is a franchise player, and so he has the power and absolutely should be doing what he's doing right now and sitting out until they meet his demands. And I don't get it either. I think that the Sens have done some really good things this offseason and had a really good draft, I thought. But this, you're right, it's a total head scratcher. He should absolutely already be signed by now.
And then for Vancouver, like, what have you made of them? Like, I think they'll probably get these deals done with Hughes and Pettersson. But what did you make of their offseason and what they are coming into the year? Because I've been pretty down on them. I don't remember. What did you have for them when we did their over-under point totals? Weren't we on the under on them both?
I think I was under on Vancouver, if I remember correctly. And yeah, I would say their offseason has been a mixed bag. And it seems like from the way they're talking, they're close here, but there's some finer points to nail down. And it's interesting because Pettersson and Hughes have the same agent. Mm-hmm. And so one agent with two guys trying to divvy up a finite amount of cap space for the Canucks, which is interestingly about the total that you would want to pay these guys anyway. So if you think of Pettersson in the 7.5 to 8 range and Quinn Hughes at the 5.5 to 6 range, that's the remaining cap space that the Canucks have. Yep. So it's just I think they should have had it done by now. But again, if they really are just ironing out some minor details, then sure, if it takes another day or two, that's okay, I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
That's tough for Vancouver if they really, because I would think if I were them, I'd be trying to sign Quinn Hughes right now I'd be trying to sign him long term. He had a down year last year, and I almost want to take advantage of that. Sign him to, if he could do it. Maybe Hughes and his agent would be too smart for this. But offer him 8 years at $7 million per year, because he is the type of player where he could have this meteoric rise as one of the top defensemen in the league. He seems to have that type of ability. And if you sign him to a bridge contract, kind of like what Dahlin signed in Buffalo, you sign him to a comparable contract, 3-year deal worth $6 million per year. And of course, you're not going to be upset if he becomes a Norris level defenseman, but now you're going to have to go pay him maybe $10+ million a year. And look, you had the opportunity to maybe get him on a team friendly contract with maybe, $7 to $8 million a year. But it sounds like from what you just went through, like they might not even really have that option to go a little bit higher on the cap to get the term, just because of how bad their cap situation is. And they've kind of done that to themselves. Tyler Myers, they had to have Oliver Ekman-Larsson this offseason. They've not done great with their cap structure over the past couple of years, and we'll see what ends up happening with Hughes and Pettersson. And then finally, the Olympic schedule came out today, and I thought before we got going, you made a good point about the way they went about the Olympic schedule. Go ahead, Canada and the U.S. especially here.
Yeah, I think they did a great job putting the Olympic schedule together for the men's tournament, because they tried to put the United States and Canada games at 8 in the morning or 11 o'clock at night Eastern time to get the biggest audience possible for those games. And then they scheduled a lot of the games that were between European teams. Those are the games that got the 3:40 a.m. Eastern time slots. And so at least until they get to the quarterfinals and stuff for the regular round robin games, if you want to see the US or Canada, you might have to get up, especially if you live out west, you're going to have to get up a little early or stay up a little late on the East Coast for those 11 o'clock starts, but at least it's doable.
You're not staying up for those 3 a.m. games?
We'll see what the women's tournament looks like, and I'll have to put together a schedule that works.
Yes. All right, so I'm excited for that. I've been doing Olympic projections over on the Locked On Sabres podcast in the last couple of weeks, so I cannot wait for the tournament to begin. And now we have the schedule. China and Canada I saw on the schedule for the men's tournament, by the way. That is going to be the biggest hockey spread in the history of betting. I mean, China...
You think so?
China is plus 100,000 to win gold. I'm surprised they even put a lineup on it. Like, they even posted it. Plus 100,000. I'm not going to lie, I did watch some YouTube videos of their World Championships in Division 2, or was it Division 3 of the IIHF from last year. And no offense, but I feel like I know people that skate as well as the guys on that team. But we'll see. Maybe it won't be as bad as I think. Maybe they'll look a little more competent.
Well, China is the U.S.'s first opponent in the tournament on Thursday, February 10th. So we'll get to see him up close.
Is that a 3 a.m. game? Because I might just have to stay up for it if it is. But we'll see.
Is 8:10 a.m.
Okay,
Eastern.
I'm in for that. I'm a big soccer fan, Premier League fan, so I like morning sports. I usually get up for stuff like that. Not that 8 a.m. is crazy early or anything, but... All right, let's take a timeout here, and when we come back, we'll talk about the Buffalo Sabres taking Jack Eichel's C off of his jersey. Not that he's going to be wearing one this year anyway, but stripping him of the captaincy of the Sabres. Before we do that, though, I want to take a minute to talk to you about betonline.ag. That plus 100,000 total I told you about a little bit ago, that was from BetOnline, so you can even do Olympic hockey betting if you want. And as always, BetOnline's your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season as well. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, betonline.ag continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to their website and use the mobile device to sign up today, and you receive your 100% welcome bonus. That is double your initial deposit just for signing up. Don't forget to use the promo code NFL100. From football, basketball, boxing, your favorite Vegas casino games, and of course hockey, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline, the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts.
Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows, you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and then you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the other good stuff. I want to tell you about a much simpler way to get all that entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before. So you can watch your favorite sports, your movies, your TV shows, all in one place. No more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. But the best part is that there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package.
And this episode of the Locked On NHL podcast is brought to you by Built Bar. Did you know that Built Bar has so many delicious flavors? There's something for everyone. Coconut, cherry barcia, double chocolate, German chocolate, cookies and cream. I just got a box of the cookie dough. They've got the little pockets of actual cookie dough on the inside. So good. And they're healthy too. Check out the macros, 17 to 18 grams of protein, calories from 130 to 180, only 4 to 5 grams of sugar, only 4 to 5 grams net carbs, amazing flavors, all tasty and all healthy. Go to built.com and use the promo code LOCKED ON and you'll get 15% off your order. Use the promo code LOCKED ON for 15% off at built.com. Joe DiBiase and Rachel Donner here on the Locked On NHL podcast. All right, let's get to my Buffalo Sabres. Talked about them a little bit earlier on the Locked On Sabres podcast, so if you want some more expansive thoughts on what occurred today, feel free. But if you missed what occurred today, Sabres GM Kevin Adams met with the media on Thursday morning. Sorry, Thursday was yesterday. Recording this on Thursday night, podcast on Friday. Thursday morning, Kevin Adams announces that the Sabres have stripped Jack Eichel of his captaincy. Now, Rachel, I'll throw it to you here because I don't really want to dominate the conversation here because I feel like that could be easy for me to do on the subject. But we were kind of taken aback at how public they were about it. We all knew it was coming. We all knew it was happening. But to not even just have it in like a press release on like a Friday news dump, to not just have even like a tweet about it and like, hey, this happened or whatnot, like for the GM to get in front of the podium, and it wasn't quite a spectacle. They might be exaggerating too much, but to make it such a public event that like, hey, we're taking his C away, I don't know, that seemed like it was a little unnecessary, a bit of a shot at Eichel, if you know what I mean.
I mean, it absolutely was. I think there's two ways to go about it. There's what they did, and then there's the news dump. And I feel like if they had done it as a news dump, they would have been called out as being like chicken or something and afraid to face it. So they're just like steering into the wind, and we're going to take whatever people we're going to give them about the situation, and hopefully at the same time try and make Eichel look bad. I do not think they succeeded in that latter part of it, but I do think that this was definitely a valid strategy in terms of making it a bigger deal and answering the questions and having management there and just being like, look, this is what we have to do because we have a player that, you know, we are confident in our decision making about the medical situation here, but you know, they're not playing ball. So what are we supposed to do?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I think really the next thing to look at is like, what's the next step? Because I think this may be the last opportunity we're going to have to like bring this issue to the forefront, because games are going to start and we're going to forget about Eichel. We're going to forget about it. He's going to go away. He's not going to be in Buffalo. They're not going to trade him. Like, to me, that's the thing. What happens next? Because someone's going to bend. Someone's going to break. But who is it going to be? Or when is that going to happen? It could be a while. You've got other teams that would be in the Eichel trade sweepstakes that they're not going to trade for him until they know what's happening with the surgery. Okay, so they're out here. You've got the Sabres, who are committed to this fusion surgery that their doctors have recommended to Eichel, and they are not wavering. They are not going to let Eichel get the surgery that he wants. So they're standing strong, and Eichel is standing strong, and he will only get the artificial disc replacement surgery. He does not want to get a surgery, which the fusion surgery, from what we've all really read about it, is a surgery that has a much higher rate of having to have another one. So because he's so young, sounds like he'd have to have another surgery in his 30s, another surgery in his 40s, and I think his doctors, whether this is right or wrong, his doctors have sold him on, you get the fusion surgery, you're talking about multiple surgeries, and you're at a higher risk of having health problems later in life. And if I'm Jack Eichel and I've been sold on that, I don't think he's ever getting the fusion surgery. So now what happens? To me, I don't know what we're waiting. Are we waiting for other teams to say, all right, fine, we'll trade for him while he's hurt? Or are we waiting for the Sabres to just say, fine, Jack, you can get the surgery you want because otherwise nothing's happening here? Or I guess the Sabres could just trade him for almost nothing. But I don't know. There's not a lot of good options here, Rachel.
There isn't. And it's a really good point about what this surgery that he wants will require down the road versus what the Sabres want him to do and what that means down the road. Because obviously, the team owners and management are going to prioritize what's best for them now. And, you can say what you want about the Players Association, but nobody does a great job of protecting these athletes for the long haul. It's about their playing careers and what can be done during their peak years. Let's be frank. And so for Jack Eichel to want a medical procedure that is better for him in the long run, or at least he's been sold on that, like you said, that it's better for him long term, like you're not going to change somebody's mind on that.
Yeah. And I can get why he'd be so frustrated because, so this, by the way, is not a thing in every sport. So like I know the NFL CBA, the player has the ultimate decision on what procedure he will get. But in the NHL, that ultimate decision, or at least that final say, is up to the team. But I think John Vogel of The Athletic here in Buffalo, like he kind of put it perfectly. Like the Sabres they're treating Eichel as a player over a person. And like maybe that rule that was put in there to the NHL CBA was more designed for like torn ACLs and sprained ankles and wrist injuries. Like to me, when you have an injury this serious that could affect the guy long-term health-wise, I feel like, what was the way Vogel put it too? Like, I don't want to keep taking from him, but like I thought he put it perfectly. Like, if a scalpel is going to go into Jack Eichel's neck, he should be allowed to decide what procedure it's going to be. Like, that's should be his basic human right. And again, I think the Sabres are treating it as a player over the person. And like, as you said, I guess that's expected, right? Like they're a business, they're a sports organization, but that doesn't mean that it's not gross to me because you have him under contract for 5 more years. And after 5 more years, the Sabres don't care about anything in terms of Jack Eichel and his surgery. Like the fusion, okay, it's better for the short term, but what do we care about the long term? And to me, that's kind of a gross way of looking at it because this guy's his life is going to be affected by the decision that's made here.
It really is. And, it is telling, like I said, about the Players Association that there hasn't been a ton coming from them on this front. And
right.
And they're ostensibly supposed to have players' backs, while they're playing.
Yeah.
But like once their careers are over, they get booted over to the Alumni Association. Like nobody cares about them anymore. So if I'm Jack Eichel, I'm going to keep fighting on this front. And,
do you know what I think
he
happens?
Ends up sitting out a year, but
that's what I wonder because so he sat out a lot of last year, and then there was the 9-month break before that with COVID because the Sabres were not a part of the restart. So really, he's played 2 months of hockey in the last almost 2 years. I think the guy is sick and tired of sitting around. I think he wants clarity on the situation, and also he knows the Olympics are coming up. By the way, that would be another check in the box to get the surgery he wants, the artificial disc replacement over the fusion. The fusion is about a 6 to 8 month timetable for return. He gets that surgery, Olympics are out. Whereas the ADR surgery that he wants is closer to weeks than it is to months. So probably, like again, Team USA would have to put him on the roster really without him playing games, but he should be able to play in Beijing if he gets the surgery that he wants. And again, he wants to get on with his career. At some point, that's got to happen. I wonder if one of the more likely outcomes is Eichel just goes and gets the surgery he wants, says, you know what, I'm going to pay for it out of pocket. I need to get on with my career, and like your move, Sabres. Like whatever you want to do after that, you want to suspend me without pay, do whatever you want, but I need to get this done, and I'm just going to do the one I want. I wonder if he does that. But again, you're almost, hypothetically, you're talking about trading like millions of dollars to be able to do this. But again, I don't know what other option he might have if he's been convinced this is the right surgery for him.
Yeah, that's definitely a breach in contract, right? If he does that.
Now, see, there's the thing. It is a breach in contract, but he would have to know. The Sabres are not voiding his contract. Like, they might have the right to do that, but they're trying to trade this player. They're trying to get a haul for him. They're trying to even rebuild his value in some way. They're not going to just say we're done with it and lose him for nothing. And I think Eichel would have to know that if that's the ramification of going and doing what you want, then he does it. But again, I think there's more to it. There's got to be, like, the Sabres can recoup signing bonus. They could suspend him without pay. They could sue him. Like, to me, there are a lot more legal complications to that. But I'm out of ideas as to what happens.
I mean, going along your thoughts about the Olympics, I mean, what if he does the surgery, plays in the Olympics, and plays well, and then the Sabres trade him at high value? I mean, that's a win-win for everybody.
Rachel, I think that is exactly what the Sabres should want. Like, that's why it's so dumbfounding to me that, like, if you know he's not going to accept your diagnosis for what to do for treatment, you know that's not going to happen. Eventually, it sounds like you're going to be the ones that have to cave. Do it now, get him back on the ice, and that could be an opportunity to rebuild his value without even having to put him in your uniform if you don't want him to dress for you. Because what could be a better way to rebuild his value than getting him on the ice in red, white, and blue for Team USA and watching him perform like the normal Jack Eichel that we know, like a point-a-game NHL player at that level? Like, how do you not think that's going to go well for you? But again, I think the Sabres are only focusing on the downside, which is, well, what happens if the surgery goes wrong? Then we look like idiots. But the asset is already at a depreciated value. So to me, like, it's not you have nothing to lose, but you got to do something to try to rebuild his value. And I think the idea you just put out there, like, get him on the ice at the Olympics, that's a way to do it. It's very frustrating, if you can hear it in my voice. It's very frustrating right now in Buffalo.
I believe it.
Yes. I don't know if you've seen, like, line combinations for this team, but
oh, no.
It is going to be ugly. It's going to be so ugly. I think they have a decent blue line. League average at best, though, maybe, like, nothing crazy. Maybe they're a little bit above average on the blue line, but they are not going to be able to score goals in any way. And you've got a 40-year-old Craig Anderson in that. Like, good luck with that. Like, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. I hate to end the episode on such a negative note, but I think that's where we're at. That's where we're at in Buffalo. So when you bring up the Sabres, that's kind of what's going to happen. It'll be a tank battle. Them and Arizona again. Funny, 6 years after they were tanking like 6 years ago, they're right back in the same spot. All right, well, that's it. What do you got going on Locked On Flyers the last couple of days? Just training camp preview stuff?
Training camp stuff, and looking forward to next week when we have some actual preseason games. And we did hear from the TNT folks that they're going to do a preseason doubleheader game on, kick the tires on their broadcast. So that's a week from our day of recording, so that's next Thursday.
That's going to be for the Flyers?
And the Flyers are part of that doubleheader, yeah.
Gotcha.
So they're the early game against the Bruins, so that should be fun.
Cool, I didn't know that was happening, so I'll have to check that out. That's going to be next week. The next time we speak, we'll have preseason hockey to talk about. Hopefully no more injury news to talk about, because that was, like, today's episode was like the injury report. But hopefully we can talk about some more fun stuff in the future. Me and Mike DiStefano will be back on Tuesday for the Locked On NHL podcast. Again, if you want more on what's going on with Jack Eichel, expanded thoughts on that from me and my co-host from Locked On Sabres, Jordan Hanskin, on the Locked On Sabres podcast. And that's going to do it for us today. Follow us on Twitter. I'm at Sneaky Joe Sports. Rachel is at R Miriam. And this has been the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.